Sequels always face uphill battles to their predecessors, whether it's the first iteration or if it's many others down the road. Usually, being able to stand on its own is hard to do. So far, the Pokemon series has been on average okay, but nothing that is overwhelmingly groundbreaking. Really, there's only been one terrible entry, and that was Pokemon 2000. The rest have been serviceable. Now, 4 entries in, this sequel, believe it or not, manages to make itself feel very much the same to that of the original film that came out. Of course, there are issues with it, like all others that came before it, but there's something else to it that allows it to stand out. Unfortunately, not much detail can be given in order to keep it spoiler-free, but that should be all the more reason why to see this entry for fans of the show. The plot takes place after Season 4 of the show, where Ash and company find themselves in a forest where they spot the legendary Pokemon Suicune. However, what they don't know is that they'll also come across Celebi, another mystical Pokemon which has the ability to travel through time, of which the gang will cross paths with a boy named Sam, voiced by Tara Sands. Together, they seek to protect Celebi from an aggressive hunter known as the Iron Masked Marauder, voiced by Dan Green, looking to capture it. The film crew working behind the scenes on this movie hasn't changed for the most part. Hideki Sonoda is now heading the script, and English adaptation is still being handled by Michael Hagney. Kunihiko Yuyama is credited as the director, and Jim Malone did the English version. Acting again is as credible as it's going to get. All the main actors reprise their roles, and it all works well. Dan Green, who's now been taking part in 3 Pokemon features, should no longer be a surprise either. What is different, though, is Green playing a confident villain as opposed to a misunderstood one. Green, as the evil Iron Masked Marauder, certainly plays up his masculine voice to be as dangerous sounding as possible. Tara Sands, who's also a franchise veteran playing Sam, does a good job. It's an obvious Mokuba clone from Yu-Gi-Oh!, but that's okay. What makes the story to this entry unique, though, is how it plays into the history of Pokemon. Normally, time travel is a risky element to use in a story that isn't in the science fiction genre, but it doesn't go too crazy into detail either. Thankfully, that's to its benefit because the time travel aspect is left ambiguous due to the mysteriousness surrounding the legendary Pokemon. That's the wiggle room in the script. However, what doesn't work in its favor is a blatant plot hole that was clearly shown in the original film that doesn't occur here. Consistency is key when rules are made about how a certain universe works. That doesn't mean the story itself isn't interesting to watch. In fact, it's safe to bet that this film had a much more emotional punch to the gut than any other sequel. This factors into the rating and why it's getting more credit than the last couple features. It does beg the question, though, about the people who travel through time. Does that make them all-knowing? Is it possible that they have a deeper connection with certain characters more than the audience or other characters? The film kind of answers that, but also doesn't. And until there's clarity as to why cinematography was needed, it's just not going to make sense. It's very likely Hisao Shirai's skill was used somewhere for the film, but it's not clear how cinematography works into animation. That's where things get interesting. The animation is a much more even mix of CGI and regular animation, and it looks good. Also, the action isn't completely based on Pokemon battles, which is a change in pace. Lastly, the original music, composed by Hirokazu Tanaka and Shinji Miyazaki, was used this time as opposed to being rescored. While it's not all catchy tunes, it definitely works for the scenes at hand and does bring in that recognizable battle theme. Sadly, there's no domestic score available for this, so it's not so easy to hear the tracks separately. Maybe someday, but only in Japan. There's an obvious plot hole, and the ending raises questions about how much and what some characters really know. Besides this, though, the voice acting, animation, and story have more to offer than the last few outings, which makes it more at the level of the first movie.